All right. So, hello everybody, and welcome to KU Metaversity Guidance Workshop. And today we're going to be helping you and guiding you through your assignment to try to make you reach the expected outcome for you guys. And if you're stuck about anything, we're going to go through the basics and hope that you enjoy what we are going to be doing. So, first of all, what is our plan for today? So, our agenda for today is to demo the final output of the assignment, to create the menu UI, and we're going to also go through how to approach implementing the menu. So, how are we going to do this? It's simple. We're going to also publish it to GitHub. That's also a big part of our thing. We're going to be doing a Q&A once we're done as well. So if anyone has any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. So let's just jump in immediately with Unity and hope we have fun. So I believe that most of you have already established the MRTK environment. And if you did not, don't worry. We've already went through the majority of this previously, but we're going to be guiding you through the challenging parts to begin with. So if you're a KU participant, you can watch Alberto's third webinar titled Building HoloLens App with MRTK Part 1. If you're not a KU participant, we have a setup guide on our Discord server under resources channel, and we'll be dropping that also inside of the chat. So don't be shy at all. Ask us as much as you want, and we'll be happy to help. So let's get started. So here is what we're going to be doing. First things first, I want you guys to have an asset already installed from the Unity asset store. It's free. It's rather simple. It's called Free House Interior. The link will also be posted inside of the chat. So we'll be happy to send it over in a second. And all you have to do is just make sure that you add it into your Unity account, and then we're going to get to work with Unity. So when you load up the scene, this is what we expect from you. You're going to see the scene. It's rather simple. We have a menu, and we have a follow menu that will be next to our hand. So here is exactly what we expect as the final result. This is what you're going to see. We want to have the function menu. When you press on something, it would spawn it. And you can, using the hand controls, to move it around left and right, double click it, move it around, and release to have it released and saved inside. And then we're going to have this hand, the right hand, which is the one that has the function being followed here, as you can see. So we can just go over and hover over to the menu that we spawned. And you just have to name it properly. And with us today, we have also Rama, the founder of MetaVero, and I am Omar, the co-founder. So happy to have you guys here. So you see this menu. Once you press on follow me, you see that the menu is kind of following us around, doing stuff as we go. But we don't want that. So you see the frozen hand, stop it from moving, and we'll use this hand to move up and make sure that the icon is being hovered over properly. And once you press on clear all the scene, everything inside the scene is clear. So this is what we have, and this is what we expect. So I'm going to show you a simple way to spawn in the menu. All you have to do is press on Mixed Reality at the top if you have the MRTK installed, Toolkit, and Toolbox. It will take you to this menu. This menu contains a lot of buttons, a variety of them, and it has button collections, near menus, and other miscellaneous information. For our case, I'm just going to show you a quick rundown of how we're going to do it. We're going to spawn in an empty plate into our scene, and it will just appear as so. As you can see, it's just a tiny little box. And then we're going back to the MRTK, and we're going to just spawn a button. And you see that the button has also spawned at the origin, but we want it slightly closer to us. So we want it to be part of the menu. So have it as so. And I'll run down a simple, simple code instruction on how to have this button spawn in objects. But make sure that after you've installed your objects into the scene, to go to Window, Package Manager, and make sure that you have the free house interior installed. Once you have that installed, press on Import. And if it's already imported, then you don't have to worry about it. Just nothing will import. All assets are already inside of your scene. Once that is done, we're going to have to create an object into our scene. It's an empty object. Just create empty, and we're going to name it origin, which is the point that we're going to be spawning all of our objects into the scene. And make sure that to reset the transformation, we want it to be 0, 0, 0 in all aspects, and the scales to be 1, 1, 1. Once you do so, we're going to come back to our button that we spawned in. It's called pressable button HoloLens, and this is the UI clone backplate. So we're just going to drag this into it, so it becomes a child of that backplate. So once you move the backplate, it will also follow it around. Now, we're going to go to the pressable button, and we're going to go at the very bottom and add a component. And what are we going to add? We're just going to add a simple script. We're just going to call it spawner, or yeah, just object spawn. Object spawn. Create script. Script will be added into your asset folder, and it will take a moment for the Unity environment to reload. And once it's reloaded, we're going to edit script. It should immediately take us into this. And once you see this, that means we're getting right into the heart of the code. First things first, we want to import the MRTK environment. And how are we going to do so? It's simple amount of code that will be posted into the comments and into the chat at the moment. And it's literally this. This way we can have all the bases already existing. So how do we spawn objects? It's very simple. First thing we have to do is remember that empty object that we just created. We're going to create it again. And this way is just a simple and safe way to ensure that it's saved inside of our script and it can be accessed inside of the Unity project. So first things first, we're going to go to private transform. And we're just going to name it, for our case, origin. Doesn't matter, you can name it anything. No one's going to tell you no. So once you name it, then we're going to go to writing the actual script that spawns in the object. So what is it? It's going to be a public void, and we're just going to name it spawn. You can name it whatever you want. No one's going to stop you from naming it. But what do we expect to have inside of the spawn? There's a few things first. This is just an empty function. It doesn't do anything, but we want it to spawn in an object. So what type of Unity environment uses to identify game objects? It's literally just game object. Once you do that, you would call it item. You can call it chair. You can call it whatever. Doesn't matter. So this way we have called upon an object inside of the Unity folder, inside of your Unity project. So what's the first step to do that? Is to instantiate the object, to make it appear inside of our scene. How do we do this? It's very easy. Just create a variable, and let's just name it go. Doesn't matter, you can name it anything. Equals to instantiate, and inside of it, we're going to instantiate two things: item and the origin that we called on at the top. Please forgive my spelling mistakes because I sometimes just type too fast. Anyway, so here is what we're going to do next. After creating it inside of the spawn, we're going to work on a piece of script that already exists inside of the MRTK that will help us manipulate the objects. And it's a very easy thing. It's just called object manipulator. It's part of the MRTK. All we have to do is just var object manipulator equals to obj, which is our object, or just go in our case, dot add component. We're going to add that component into the object that we're spawning, and that component will be an object manipulator. So if you write this object, you'll find it that it immediately kicks in if you have the libraries installed properly. Once we do this, we're going to call on it as a function. My bad, I opened the assembly code. That is not correct. So here, after you do this, we're gonna need to define the shape of the object inside of our scene. So we're gonna add in an object collider, a box collider in our case. So go.add component, and we're adding a box collider. If you write box, it should immediately kick in since we're using the Unity engine. Now, finally, we'll have to add another MRTK standard script. And guys, if you have any questions that pop up while I'm writing this, please ask them away. We'll be happy to immediately answer and try to remove any confusion. But yeah. So we stopped after we created the box collider. We have to now add some MRTK scripts that are just basic scripts that we have to integrate. For our case, we need to integrate two main scripts. One of them is called solver handler, and one of it's called tap to place. The solver handler is a way for the MRTK to create states for every single object that you have inside of the scene. So when you try to interact with it using the controls, it would still recognize the state of the object as you're communicating with it, more or less. So if you drag the object, it will keep the state of it as floating, moving, and it wouldn't hinder it when you're using it. It will save it in a complete different state. And the other one is tap to place. And tap to place is a confirmation script that helps us confirm that the object is being placed in our scene. Like I showed you before, when we were running through the scene and spawned in the arcade, it was following the hand, and we had to double click to make it stay in place. That's what tap to place is for. So how do we do this? It's easy. First thing is we have to do is the solver handler. So var solver handler equals to, since we named our object go, so it's go, add component, and since we have it already called in inside of the MRTK, we're just going to call solver handler. You'll see it appears with you. Nothing to worry about. If it does not appear, make sure that you have the right information saved on the top. If you don't have these, it's not going to run. So we're going to call on the solver handler that we just made, and we're going to have it to track the target type. Nope. Target type. Track target type, sorry. Target type is equals to object type dot control array. And you're going to ask, what is control array? Control array is responsible for the ray that comes out of the hand when you're pointing at an object, and it helps you to guide inside of the menus. If you're confused about it, please ask. Okay, so the second thing that we called is the var tap to place. What does this do? We said it's used to confirm that the object is actually being spawned in properly and confirming that it actually spawns inside of the scene. So we're going to go.add component. We want to also add this in, and it's part of the MRTK. Don't have to do much. Tap to place. Tap to place. Now we want it to always start whenever we have an object spawn into the scene. So once the object spawned into the scene, it's being tracked by the finger as you're moving. If you don't do that, it's not going to be easy for you to control. And that way you can make sure that you're placing it in the right position and it does not cause you any problems. And the second thing we're going to do with tap to place, since it already exists inside of the MRTK, is called keep orientation vertical. That way you can make sure that the object is always spawned in the right position and in the right way when you're spawning it in. So the chair that you're spawning doesn't look upside down, or you have a fridge that is laying down. It would completely defeat the point. So using tap to place dot keep orientation vertical equals to true. And that is literally all the code that you need for your spawner. So once that is done, make sure to save. And if you save it properly, then we'll go into our Unity configurator. And if I see correctly, my bad, I have another script that was running in the background and it was causing a problem. So let me just get rid of it. Yeah, so if we go here into this, it should have it properly. Make sure that all your scripts that you have inside is saved properly, because if you don't have the scripts saved properly, it's going to cause you another issue. And that is persistent usually with Unity in general. So make sure that your scripts are saved properly, because if you don't, it's going to cause you problems. So in our case, we have a script that is causing us a problem. Now I got rid of the script. Now it's reloading the script for all the other scripts. And you see that it did it properly. So now we want to go back to our button. Go to the very, you should see that the object spawn is there. And we're going to go here to the basic events on click, which should be part of the button when you call it in. And we're going to call on the object, which is the button. If it's being pressed, it should do the following function: object spawn, and you should see spawn game object here. If you have the libraries properly installed, you can just press here, assets, and it should appear in your side of your assets. And for our case, we're going to spawn in a basket, for example. Now, you're going to ask me about the origin. Why did it not show here? That means that we have not established it properly. Because if you take a look at the code here, you'll see that we have made it private. And if you make it private, it creates a problem. We want it to be a public. So public, make sure to save. Now, if we come back to our code and reload the script, yes, it has reloaded properly. If you go to the bottom, here is the transform again, the origin that we're asking for. Dump it in. And we have established inside of our basic events that it would spawn in a basket. If I press on play, while it loads, yes. So you're going to see that our button here has made it. And when you press, it spawns in the basket. So as you can see, if I go with the hand controls and I drag the basket, it's always being followed. This is what the tap to place is for. So every time you move your hand, it will keep on doing that unless you double click, hold, and release, and it stays in position. So that means we have finished the first bit, which is creating the spawner. Now, we want you to see what type of menu we're going to be making. So we're going to go to MRTK, toolkit, packet manager. And inside of assets, instead, we're going to go in project. Once you go into in project, we're going to see a lot of examples. So we want to go to here, examples, samples. So for our case, we're going to re-import the scrolling object collection. So I'll re-import it. And we're going to go see inside of the scenes, scrolling object. We'll save our current scene. So what do we expect from you? So as you can see here, this menu is what we're going to be working with. Something similar for you guys specifically. We're going to go and take that one specifically. Where is it? No, not the quad. We want the scroll parent, title, vertical. Yeah, so it's called vertical scroll platform. So we're just going to copy that and go back to our own scene. I have mine called prototype. And as you can see here, this is just my scene. So I'm just going to go here and paste it. So you'll see that the menu has appeared. But you're going to ask me, why do we have this menu here to begin with? Well, I want to have this menu to teach you two things. First, how these buttons are actually made. So each of these buttons is just called in non-dynamically. So we want to call it in dynamically. So how do we do this? First of all, I want to teach you as well that this can be altered inside of our vertical scroll item scroll parent. And then you should be able to see inside of the object collection. This is what we want. This will tell you the number of columns and the number of columns and rows inside of the menu bar. So if I change this to 1, it will just show me 1 row. If I make it 2, it will show me 2 rows. But for our case, we want to have maybe 4 rows. And instead, we can just have 1 in each column. And then you can just move this and fit it as much as you want inside of this scene. So you see the scrolling object collection. You can edit that inside of here. But we need to establish that all of the other buttons are prefabs. But since these are not prefabs, these are just made buttons by hand, we don't want that. So we're going to remove everything except for the first one. So that's the only one that we want to keep. So you just select all of the others, all the pressable buttons. Just select them all, delete. We don't want it. We only need 1. And once you make it, we're just going to turn it into a prefab. You're going to ask me, what is a prefab? A prefab, more or less, is an object that you can keep on calling multiple times. And once you call it on multiple times, you can keep on changing and iterating it with every come and go. And you don't have to worry about it as much. So how do you turn it into a prefab? You just press on it, and then you go to and it should be, I believe it's here. Yeah, it's fine. If it does not just come up, anyway, we're just going to turn it into a prefab soon enough. Anyway, once you do that, we're just going to go to use a script handler inside of the object collection, which is forgive me, sometimes I just lose touch and completely lose my train of thought. Anyway, so we have the button here, and it's already, the icons are here for you to play around with if you want to. First of all, I believe some people might have some questions. If you do, please ask ahead.
I believe at the moment we don't have any. So
all right.
I guess you are doing amazing. No one has any questions.
All right. So where did we stop? Yeah. So the grid object collection. So this here helps us define the number of columns that we have, just the same way that we've established inside of the container. But we want to also not only just play with it, we want to have it dynamically change with us. So after deleting all of the other buttons, like we said, we're just going to turn the first one into a prefab. To do that is just to right click it. And I believe it should be toggle to active state. Nope, 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 nope. And let me double check. I cannot remember for the life of me. But we're just going to turn it into a prefab anyway. But remember the button that we created here, this one. We're going to be calling on it again inside of our menu when we actually come to creating it. So inside of our menu here, we are going to implement the second button. Sorry, we're going to make it a grid object collection. So first of all, we just go to our main thing, the quad, and add a script. Let's just name it listing. That's the script that we're going to use to object spawn, it should open up. If it did not, make sure that you edit script. Yes. Remember the object spawn code that we've used. Make sure to copy paste everything you wrote inside of it, because we're going to be using the same exact thing into the listing. And you're noticing that we haven't imported some vital information, which is the top, which is the MRTK libraries. So once you do that, everything should be fine. But what is our next step? Since we have to make it a list that has different information for each room. So the way we're doing it is rather simple. We're going to be creating two lists, two separate lists, right above here. So we'll make two public lists, a public game object list, and we're just going to name it living room items. Okay. And then we're just going to make another one called public game object named bedroom items. After you do that, we have to create a private list that will contain these two, so we can keep on alternating them inside of the menu. So like in the menu, when you press on the next button or the previous button, you can keep on switching between these two living rooms or more if you want to at any time. So we're just going to create a private list of type game object. And it's going to be called room lists. And it's just going to be a new list of game objects. We're going to also create a simple integer that was going to alternate between them containing the index, just the naming of the index. So just private int, just name it index or room index, anything is fine. Just you need just to have an index that we're going to keep on alternating and changing from. So after you do that, what is the next step? Well, remember the grid object collection, the thing that will dynamically create the buttons for us. We have to call it, and we also have to call on the prefab button that we're just going to make. So first things first, we have to make a serialized field called private grid object collection. If you're using the libraries, it should immediately kick in, and we're just going to call it grid object collection. The second one, serialized field, that is going to be the item prefab, the buttons. So we're just going to make it a private game object, and we're just going to name it room item button. Okay, so after that, how do we actually put in, sorry, I completely forgot to add the parentheses here. How do we actually add these two inside of this? So you remember the start, the void store that we had here that we did not touch? Well, we're going to touch it now. And what does it do exactly? That the beginning of every time you run your scene, it will fill up this list inside of it with the other lists. So every time you start up the scene, it will do something that you want. So in our case, we're just going to do room list dot add, and then all we have to do is just call in living room items, and we can just repeat it again for the other one, and it's the bedroom items. So every time you run your script, it will automatically detect, and it will have these two saved up inside of room list. The next step is to call in our spawn, which we did. After that, here's the challenging bit that you guys have to do on your own, but I'll help you a tiny bit, just enough to get you off your feet. So it's the updating the menu. What me and my group members expect from you for this assignment is to make a private IE numerator called update menu. You're going to be asking, what does that do exactly? I'll explain in a second. So this one is responsible for updating the menu every time that you load in a button or change the room. It will clear up your grid and it will add in the new buttons that are based off the items inside of your list. So I'm just going to give you small hints in here. Then I'm going to show you a tiny bit of how it works, so not to leave you completely lost. So first thing you have to do is instantiate a button. Instantiate the buttons, okay? But only in code. Don't do it inside of the Unity editor. We don't want that. We've already instantiated a button before. We've shown you how it works. Also, we want you to update the title of the room. So every time you switch between rooms, it should update the name of the room. So it wouldn't stay bedroom and you get like the living room items. So we want you to update the title of the rooms as you switch between them. Okay. And I'll give you a tiny little hint that will actually help you a lot. Remember the room index that we made at the top? Use it, because this will help you switch between one room and another. So try to figure out how it should work and how to limit it so it doesn't overflow from the limit of the rooms. So if you have 2 rooms, don't make it exceed 2, because once it exceeds 2, it completely breaks the system and it wouldn't work. So try to figure out how to limit it. And if you run into any errors, please tell us and we'll try to guide you, but no freebie code that you're just going to get out of nowhere for it. So first things first is we have to call on the items inside of the room. So I'll help you with that bit. So just create a var, name it room items, and make it equals to room list, and inside of it is room index. So this means that the room items is equivalent to the room list room index. And let's see. Yeah. So this is just self-explanatory. Every single time that you have room items, it will automatically run through it. Then next thing to do is to clear the menu, because every time you're going to update the buttons, you have to clear up everything and add in the new information. How would you do that? It's rather simple. Just make a for each loop and make it transform the child meaning the buttons inside of that, inside the grid object collection that we have established. Transform. So that means every time it checks inside of the grid object collection, if there is a child, it has to delete it. So here is how it's going to be done. Destroy. Destroy is Unity's C# call to delete everything in the scene without worrying about it at all. So you can just do that. Destroy child dot game object. Anything that is a game object inside of the scene, inside of that list, it will immediately get removed. And now there's something majorly important, because this is an IE numerator update function. It has a different way of integrating. Until now, you've noticed that it's giving you an error. And the reason is it always needs a return. Most other functions, when you call on them, it will work immediately. But here, because it's an update function that was going to also be called inside of the start, it has to return a yield. Since it's a for each, we want for every single iteration inside of it to give us something. So in our case, we just want to yield nothing, there is nothing we want to return. So in this code, literally, it just empties up the grid object collection for you and makes it clear for the next step. So we want to update it by doing the following. So grid object collection dot update collection. It's a pre-existing function. You don't have to do much. And this will just update the grid collection to have the newest iteration of itself. Not difficult, simple. So another to-do list for you guys is to loop through each room item and create a button with the item name. So I want you guys to loop through the item for each room and create a button for it and link the spawn functionality. So you know how to do this using the event listener, right? Using the on-click listener. I already showed you how to do it. Should be simple, shouldn't be complicated. So after that, we will do it simply for each side. We'll make it a var item in room items. So you can just see what is expected. Here, we want you to do it as follows. You would instantiate the buttons on the grid object collection. We already talked about it, how to do that. So using the transform, just like we did here in the delete, we expect to do the same thing, but instead of deleting, we want you to add the buttons. Add the functionality to spawn, add spawn. Now, there's something you need to figure out. There's something called button config helper. The button config helper is a component that we have to add to the buttons so we can have the on-click functionality. If you don't have that, you're not going to be able to have the spawn functionality run properly and the on-click event to happen. So get the component called button config helper. I'll show you in Unity exactly what I mean so you guys are not confused. So remember here when we made it for the button. So it should be for the button here, our baby little button. Here it is. You see this, the button config helper. That's the script that we have. So it contains the label for the button, and also it has a basic event. So that event is the thing that spawns in the object once you call on your function from the script. All right? So back to the script. So where were we? Add the, after you do that, add the spawn functionality. Again, sorry, this is just a function. Here is we are adding the functionality. Using the code. You just need to have the function inside of the for each, but make sure that it happens after the button configure, because here it's mainly just, this is just instantiating. This is a mistake. When you instantiate the buttons in the grid object collection, you can just use the same way that we did it with the spawn, like right here, like the go instantiate item and origin, you can just do the same thing to spawn inside of the grid function collection. Here, we just want to add the function, just copy paste the function that you've done for the spawn for each object. Instead of for a single code, we're going to do it inside of here for each. So for each button, it creates the spawner. So you just have to go inside of your code and just add in the object that you're spawning. It's my fault. I just mixed it up. It happens when you code a lot. Now, you have to also update the name of the title and text on the button. So it doesn't just appear button 1, button 2, button 3. Make sure that it actually has the right naming scheme. So once you do that, you can just, small hint, it is inside the button properties. You just look onto the button properties over here. You can just see that it has the name, the labels, and everything. But also, you can just make sure that you have the right things. So if you go here, button properties, say select, and here, 1 second. Yeah, here, the input text, you can change it to whatever you want. Make sure that you have the right thing. And for the button, you can just change the, you can just change it as you wish. So here you can just change the icon depending on what you want. But in general, this is how you do it. Back to the code. So after you do all of this, as we said, it's an update function, update menu. Don't forget to always include a yield. If you don't have a yield, it's just going to break. It's not going to run. Right? Now, since we did this already, we're just going to take the same grid object collection, and we're just going to paste it again here, so it updates it again once we've actually added in the buttons for the room items. Okay? Don't forget that you want to keep it constantly updated. If you don't update it, you're just going to have something lost. All right? Now, there isn't a lot left. There's literally 3 functions, but you have to do them on your own. I'm just going to write their names. You should be able to figure out on your own. They're simple. So it's public void, and just unclick. Let's just name it next room. And inside of the next room, we'll have game object, item, I believe, 1 second. This should not be inside of the update. If this is inside of the update, it will create problems. This should be externally added because it's an own function. So public void on click next room. Just update the room index and make sure it's limited. So if you have 2 rooms, don't make it go 3 times. Make it have a limit. And the way to do it is using this. Using the percentage sign, if it's 4, that means the limit is 4. So we'll try not to exceed it. And using the same logic, make sure to update the menu title for the room. And get the new information for the new room. It's fine. So do the same for decreasing room. So we have one for the next room. I want you to do also one for the previous room. And now we have another function that you have to add. Oh, sorry. I need to also remind you something. Inside of this, don't forget to have something called start coroutine. Start coroutine, that means every time this happens, it will call upon the update again. So we need to have the update menu inside of here because we need to call on it. because you're updating the menu for each room as you change between them. Okay, so do the same thing for the decreasing index. Just copy paste what you did here and just make it, instead of next room, previous room. Now, the last function you have to do on your own is called void delete all items. Should be self-explanatory. I already showed you what it does inside of the room, inside of the Unity. When you spawn in a bunch of items randomly around the room, just switch the hand backwards, and inside of that small menu, we're just going to call on it to clear all rooms, or you can just add it to your own menu at the very bottom as a button that you can press. As long as you have it, that's the main thing. So how does it work? It loops through all game objects in the scene and removes them. Small hint, look at the object collection. And what I mean by look at this. See how this worked? Try to implement it on all the objects inside of the scene, except for your menu. If you remove the menu, you basically just ruined yourself. You cannot spawn any more items. So make sure it deletes everything else inside of the scene except for that. All right? So if anyone has any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Oh, before I go, I think I already talked about making this. I'll write a small example, but yeah, I'll just show you a small example of how this works so it does not confuse people, because it's a rather simple thing. But in our case, let's just say the index, we want it to be the maximum of 4 rooms. So make sure that the room index is equals to room index plus 1. I'm not going to show you the rest. And like so. This just means that the limit is 4. So it would keep on going up until 4. All right? Do the rest on your own. If you have any questions, please ask us, and I'll be happy to answer them. So, okay, I think there was a question. I was just wondering, what does update menu need to be inside of an IE numerator, since you only call it once per click, right? Okay, I'll tell you why you need it inside of a numerator. Because every time you switch between the menus, for example here, let me show you in this. Let it load up. So let me remove this. As you can see here, you've got the list. So once you switch in between this room and the other room, you want to keep on updating the information here. If it's not an IE numerator, it will cause a problem because it needs to keep on iterating the same thing over and over again. So you want to make sure that it saves, deletes the information and updates it constantly. So if it's not updated, it will create a problem because it will just show you like an empty list, or it will show you the same list that you have from the previous index. All right? Does that make sense or not? Yeah, and it's also asynchronous.
Exactly. That was the comment that I wanted to make, is that I do believe that the coroutines and the enumerator, they do happen asynchronously. So we want to basically be able to update the menu, and we don't want it to happen synchronously, because then the performance would be impacted.
Okay, so anyone has any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
I think that is all for now. Perfect.
Okay, so if this is everything related to the code, and then I hope you guys show us properly made menus that actually function properly. So yeah, next step that we want to approach, which is sorry.
Maybe we could before like show them the hands menu.
Oh,
Or
the
did we
hands
already
menu.
talk about? Yeah.
I already talked about it. The hands
Yeah.
menu, it's the one that is responsible for clearing the room. So if I spawn in, let's just spawn in a bunch of objects. So here it's there. Just dump it here. And let's just call in just random objects, chairs here. I'm just flooding the scene with objects for us. So just to show how chaotic it can be. So you've got all of these objects into the scene and you want to get rid of them. How do you do that? You would spawn in your left hand, this one. No, sorry, your right hand, and you would rotate it up till here and then press Y. Now,
how do we do that?
How do we make it track?
No, as in like, are we pressing like the space bar or alt bar? How do we make it freeze?
It's very simple. So each hand is allocated to a specific key on your keyboard. So for this case, it's the space bar is responsible for the right hand. And the way to lock it in place is to press Y. If you press Y, it will keep it frozen in space for you to control. And if you want to move it around, you have to hold on space, control, and now it allows you to rotate the hand as much as you want. So you can just keep on looping it as much as you want until the function appears. Once that happens, press Y once, and that's it. Now this hand is locked. Now you have your right hand. The right hand can move independently. You want to move it closer, further, just use the mouse wheel, and then for it to actually interact with this, you just have to make sure that it's close. And if you make it pass through it, it will press on it, or you can have it do with the pointer itself. But usually it's tricky sometimes. So you just make it pass through it. It should clear it for you. Any questions?
I don't think we have anything for now.
Okay, so the next step is when you guys are done with your project, we need to talk about how to upload it to GitHub because we want to have easy accessibility to it. So the way to do that is simple. Just make sure that you have a GitHub account. And then we're just going to press on create a new repository. Let me come here. So create a new repository. Let's just name it MRTK or menus or whatever you want to name it. So just name it menu. You can give it a description if you want. You don't have to, but just create a repository. Once it's done, it's just going to show you this. Once this is done, you can just simply go here, copy it, and just paste it up here. It will take you back to this. And then we're going to be uploading our files. But how you're going to do that? So inside of your Visual Studio, if you don't have Git installed, we're going to give you the information and all the links to it. We just want you to have Git installed. And once you have Git installed, you're just going to press on Git, local repositories, and then make a repository out of your folder. So press on the folder that you want to make. And for our case, it's just the position of your folder for your project. And once you do that, you just have to commit and stash, or just go to GitHub and post it to it. So in my case, I can just simply push, and it will push it at the bottom here to pushing master. All of the necessary information is just going to be posted into the chat at the moment, and you can use it to guide you through it. And if you have any problems, you can just simply contact us and we'll be happy to solve your problems or help you reach the final destination. And the easiest way to do it is usually through Visual Studio, because you can just go to Git and you just go to Manage Settings for Git. Make sure that you have the Git settings. Make sure you have your email and your name correctly. And then you go to Source Control. Make sure it's Git. Put in your email. Make sure everything is correct. Global settings is correct. And after that is done, you can just Git push. All right? If you want something specific to be went over again, I don't mind. There is like a specific point that you want to go over, a specific object inside of Unity, a specific script, a specific function, anything that is part of the Unity that doesn't make sense or confusing. I'll be happy to go over it. Oh, for the menu, what assets did I use? Everything is pre-existing in, what assets exactly? So the assets that I'm spawning or the asset that I use to make the menu? Yeah. So the one that is called scrolling, it's this one. It looks like this and has multiple buttons inside of it, correct? Because that's the one I deleted. You can just copy paste it into the scene, and then you can do as follows. So all you have to do is just go to Windows. Yeah, okay. So the way to do it is just go to your package manager, in project, mixed reality toolkit, and you just go to the scene that contains a scrolling object collection. And you just go to it, scene, scrolling object collection, save my scene. It should automatically take us to the new scene with all the different ones. All I want you to do is you can just choose whatever one you want to take. You can take this one, you can take this one, doesn't matter. But make sure that you take the right one. So in our case, we want this one, which is scroll object. Yeah, this one. The vertical scroll fall off platform. That's the one that I copied into our scene. Just Control C. And then you can go back to your own scene, which is saved here into the Unity scenes. Just Control V, and it will spawn it for you. And you can just play around with it. And if you're questioning what does the OC scroll mean, I'll tell you exactly what it means. It just means scrollable object object collection, sorry. OC means object collection.
Maybe we could also show them how to like minimize the number of
Yeah, to minimize the number of
displayed.
columns.
Yeah.
It's all you have to do is just go to the object collection. Yeah, paginization. Yeah, pagination.
Yeah.
Just change the number of cells per tier. So make it 1, 12. You can make it as many as you want. It does not matter. It just depends on your preference, like really. And this is just chooses the number of rows. So in our case, 2, 1. You can just make it as many as you want. In our case, we just want 1 and just as many rows as we can have.
Yep. And I think like that specific number being defined does not really matter, because we will be like instantiating it within these script, right? So the number of rows would not really matter in this case, but the number of
columns, it does definitely matter.
Exactly.
Because the number of columns identifies then like what to expect exactly. So in our case, we could just move this here. And anyway, whenever you instantiate one, it will automatically fill it in, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you limit it to an extent that is only 1 by 1, for example, that will cause a slight problem when you're scrolling through it. So make sure that you have just enough for at least that is visible on there. The position of the button in that collection when you spawn them. When the position of the buttons is automatically padded inside of the object collection, because it would be inside of like here. Let me show you what I mean. Grid object collection. It has a sorting, has automatic sorting and cell width and height. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about it. You just choose the number of columns. In our case, we just have a grid object collection, 1 column, and the alignment is to the left, and we have cell width and cell height.
Yeah, and how about if we were going to like specify the position of it within the code? How would we do that? I think you've already mentioned
that is already established. They have to figure that out on their own, but it's the basis of it has been already established.
It has been already established, I believe, in the first spawn function that we did, right?
Yes.
Can you maybe just
object spawn
tell them which line that we're referring to?
It is var object collection. No, not the manipulator. Sorry, it should be. 1 second. No, that's the first spawn. No, we don't want that. It's in the new spawn. It's inside of the listing. It's here, private grid object collection. When you serialize it and you make it a grid object collection with the item, with the room item buttons. So when you do this, it will automatically create the set, because the grid object collection is an MRTK script. So it has most of the information ready for you to just mess around with.
Yeah. Okay. So then I think,
Go ahead. I was just going to say everything here is just easy. It's a puzzle that you have to put out all the pieces together. It's not that difficult.
It is. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think the one thing they would need to take into consideration, or more so this is more of like a hint, is if you can see on line 22, we have public transform origin, which what basically means again is you would be spawning that specific object on that, right? So using the transform specified over there. So when you want to spawn the menu items, you would want to somehow receive the position of the grid object collection, right? So want to figure out how to receive the position, maybe figure out how you can get out the transform of it.
And just so you know, this is linked to the position of the menu, not linked to the position of the world. So when it spawns it at 0, 0, so it does not add to the position. But if you change it, it will change the place that you're spawning in. So if you make the origin change by 10 in the x-axis, it will spawn it at 10 units away from the x-axis. So when you have it as 0, 0, 0, it would spawn exactly at the place that you're pressing the button.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Do we have any more questions?
If there is no more questions, you know.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Okay, so also, oh wait, so we spawn it on the menu or beside. I kind of pushed it in the side like this, vector spawn location. Uh, this is also fine. Yeah, if you vector3 spawn location, you more or less you just specified exactly where do you want to spawn it. Yeah, this is also fine.
Yeah, so you have essentially used the position of the menu and then moved around using like the forward, up, and right, which is
Vector3, yeah, yeah.
totally fine. Yeah, we are just saying that you can do it like in another way, where you use the position of the
Yeah.
grid object
You're
collection.
what you're doing is slightly more hard coding it. What we're doing is like a workaround, so you don't have to worry about writing the transformation for the object in the world environment.
Yep.
So instead of writing up the transformation for every single time you spawn an object, we just created a point that it would try to follow around. So if you change that point in the empty to be 10, 10 on the X, 10 on the Y, you can do that, or you can just simply code it the same way you did with transformation.
Yep. Okay, do you have any more questions?
Okay.
No worries, you're most welcome.
So if you guys have any further like specified questions, please go ahead. And don't forget to upload what you've done to GitHub, please.
And then after you do that, don't forget to send them an email with that GitHub link
repository.
that obviously contains, yeah, the assignment. Okay, I guess if there are no more questions, we can proceed.
Yeah. So the next thing that we're going to go over is just simply the base script. So this is the base script that we provided here, and it also contains the bits that you have to work on. So it has the basic information to help you reach that final destination. All right. Wait, also, isn't it a bit hard to scale the spawned assets since the tap to place kind of messed that up? Yeah. Yeah, it follows the hand when you spawn it first. It does that due to the fact that it needs to be double clicked to stop it from following. Since it's not on hands control using the headsets themselves with the hand tracking, it's not gonna do it properly. But with the hand tracking, it works flawlessly because it spawns it in and you can pinch it and move it around. But since we're doing it natively inside of the Unity environment, it will follow it as if the mouse has just pinched it and it's still holding it. So it does not have a proper release mechanism. That's why it kind of messes it up. But I don't think you have to scale it that much. Yeah.
All right, I guess we can proceed with the base script that we'll be providing.
No, like I just did a minor test since I like to test the object manipulator, so I came across that kind of thing. Yeah, okay. It's the thing is about the object manipulator, it completely depends on the object itself. So it's not just the object, but also the sorry. it depends on the controls that you're using on the object that is connected to the object manipulator. So if you have used, for example, an actual controller, it would have a different effect on the object than using a mouse. And instead of using hand tracking like on the Microsoft HoloLenses, when you use the hand tracking, it has a specific functionality for it to interact with the object. So it completely negates certain parts when it interacts with the tap to place. So if you look at here, yeah, for the tap to place, when you're doing it inside of the headset itself, it automatically detects it that you're trying to place the object once you pinch your fingers and release. But it creates, yeah, this is literally its main functionality. The object manipulator has a lot of functionality to it, not just that. It just, for our case, when we use it with the tap to place function in Unity, when it runs on a PC, not on a native device, it creates that type of error. And it's known, so it's not a new thing.
Yep. One more thing I would like to add is that the resize and like the scaling and whatnot, that would be included within the object manipulator script. So then as soon as that object has the object manipulator script, you can like resize and move it around and whatnot. So yeah.
Any further questions? Yeah, the GitHub does not allow you to add folders. You have to do it through Git. And if you don't do it through Git and Bash code on Linux, it's not going to run properly. So unless you have Git installed natively and you have to do it through the Microsoft Visual Studio, that's the safest way. That's why I even use it for my personal projects. When I'm uploading something to GitHub, I would publish it through Git natively inside. It's a safer way, and I make sure that all the folders are being uploaded there. But make sure that you're inside of the project folder for Unity for your project. If you're not inside, you're only posting what you've worked on actively on the IDE itself. Make sure you're inside the folder and you're posting the entire folder. When you're pushing the entire folder, not just one code.
Do you guys have any more questions?
I literally added like 10 files using the trick where you write the folder name, file name to make one until I realized there are too many folders. Yeah, that happens when you actually use Unity. Unity creates a lot of metadata. Yeah, make sure that whenever you're using Unity, Unity creates a lot of metadata for all your folders and all your files that you have inside as a precautionary measure for every time you load up the scene. so it can easily access it when you're loading the same project off another device. If you're just copying the files to like a USB or an SD card or something, it's easy to call it back with all the information needed, as long as everything is saved inside of the project folder.
Okay, I guess that is it, and we can proceed. I don't see any more questions coming up.
There is not a lot left. So besides the finalized code, the base code, there is nothing else to do. So
okay, so yeah. So here you guys have the QR code as well as the link on the side for you to download the base script that will help you out a lot when you are doing the assignment. And it has mostly all of the things that we have talked about over here in this workshop. So yeah.
And if you have any more questions, you can jump onto our webpage or our Discord and ask us any questions there. We'll be happy to help in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, apart from that, I would like to present my screen. I have a few things to talk about for the, give me a second. Okay, PowerPoint slide for the Q&A section. I've got a few information to go through. So the team application, I believe like the past week or so, you were not able to input a team that is less than 5 people. Now that application form has been fixed, you will need a team that is a minimum of 2 individuals and a maximum of 5. Now the team application is due this Friday, the 16th at 11:59 p.m. And for the team application, only the participants who have previously registered as individual participants, so like at the very beginning, these are the only participants who are considered eligible to form a team. Now, the eligibility will be checked based on the email addresses that you have used to register as an individual. So please, please, please use the same email. And yeah, so you have to keep that in mind when you are submitting the team application. And okay. And only one participant in the team needs to submit the team application, and that person will be defined as the team leader. Now, the team leader needs to obtain a written confirmation form or like a written confirmation from the team participants that they will input in the form below regarding their participation in the team. Okay, so when you are submitting the team application and you're submitting the idea, the 200 SA1 that we will talk in a bit, just make sure you include some kind of written form that the team members you're including are okay with that. Okay. And all right, so you will need to provide a 200-word overview of the mixed reality application prototype that you are planning to build during the Metaversity hackathon. That is going to happen on April 25th and 26th. And then on April 27th, that is when your applications, that is when the team winners will be chosen. So the hackathon winners will be chosen. And so please ensure to spend as much time as possible with your team to like brainstorm and define the idea, as that 200-word overview essay is the one that will determine whether or not your team will proceed on to joining the hackathon. Now, next. Okay, I think those are all the questions that I've got, or the concerns that I've got for the hackathon. Oh, and about the 200-word overview essay. So I did receive a few questions. They were asking like, what could we include over there? So you are expected to describe the mixed reality application idea that you want to build within the hackathon. So you would want to include things like why your idea should be the one to proceed and should be the one to be chosen to proceed to the hackathon, and why is your application needed to be in the field of education, because after all the mixed reality application that you'll be creating needs to be needs to be within the field of education. So it would need to like enhance the experience of how the education field, you know, goes about like teaching others and whatnot. And then you could also include things like how impactful it would be to include your application. And yeah, just I think last thing note again, please remember that the process of elimination would be based on this 200-word essay that you will submit, and that will determine whether or not your team will proceed to the hackathon that's happening on the 25th till the 27th of April this month. That is all what I have. Yep. Do you guys have any questions regarding the hackathon, regarding the workshop that we just had, anything at all? We'll just wait for 2 more minutes just to make sure there are no more questions. For the elimination, what about it? Any idea of the capacity they're looking for? What do you exactly mean by that? What do you mean by the capacity? The capacity in terms of the word essay, or in terms of how many teams will proceed to the hackathon? If it was for how many teams will proceed to the hackathon, I have no idea. However, for the essay, as we previously mentioned, it will be a 200-word one. Yeah, no clue about the teams, no idea. I guess they will look at the ideas and see, you know, which ones are the best. So just make sure to write as many details, I guess, as possible that you think would make your idea proceed to the hackathon. Because like there is one thing that you do need to remember is like we did receive 300 participants at the very beginning, so it would be very interesting to see the ideas that people would come up with. But you are competing with a lot of people. But hey, just make her idea pop and see you in the hackathon. Perfect. Yes, to add that glitter and the bam and whatnot and make it pop.
And just so you know, unique doesn't make something special. It depends on its functionality. You can make something as unique as possible. That's the crazy part. And I think only 44 registered in the online course thing.
Well, not sure, but I guess that happens a lot, I would say, where people are like, oh my god, yes, I want to join the hackathon. I'm so like excited for this. Or like another event. And then when that hackathon or that event actually happens, they're
only 10
they're
people
just
appear.
But hey, you would like 44 people is not a tiny bit. So
44, that's a decent chunk.
yeah. And again, like those people are the one who registered for the online course. You might have people who did not, and maybe they ended up just paying the workshop. Sorry, the workshops that have already been recorded, and then they just looked through that. So you never know. Gotta do
Gravity.
gravity.
Okay.
That
We'll see.
That would be like interesting to see how you would implement the physics.
Yeah, people.
Yeah, because that's gonna be a bit, I'd say, tricky when you're dealing with that. It depends.
Yeah, but
it depends on the implementation.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Mm.
Yeah, it happens. It's fine.
Okay. Are there any more questions?
If we're all good.
Oh, one more question is coming up.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there is a way. There is two ways. There is the official way and there's the janky way. The official way is using plastic SMC. It's a pre-existing thing inside of Unity you can use to collaboratively work with up to 3 people, and you have a 5 gig limit for your project. But the other janky way, the one that I was doing for a long time, is doing it through GitHub. And that one is so annoying and difficult because you keep on pushing into GitHub, make sure everyone else is also pushing to figure. Yeah. Yeah, just keep your question coming. It's fine. Yeah, so there's 2 ways. Plastic SMC, that's the easy way. You just connect all of you onto a server that is done through Plastic itself, and you can just connect people on it. You have 3 people, and you can just keep on pushing. It's a source control software. And the other way is the janky way, that is the safest way, which is GitHub. To create a GitHub repository, link it up with your Unity account, link it up with your project, and you keep on pushing to it and receiving from it. Yeah. So there is an easy way and a difficult way. And the thing is, Plastic SMC, I'm not saying it's bad. It's actually very good for what it offers. The problem is, after your project reaches the 30 gig mark, you realize, oh, I have to pay now for it. So, and it's not relatively cheap. So that's the problem with it. But yeah. Okay, so we're also planning on doing a workshop soon enough on our Discord, so please join it. And it's we're gonna send you the link into the chat. And that workshop is going to be about explaining how Unity works in general, establishing a basis for it, how to create just any type of software on it, game project you want, and just running through the basics, creating a simple game in 2D, creating a game in 3D, And then we're going to work on a giant collaborative project. Hopefully that is on our Discord. So we'll try to get everyone on. And we're going to make a giant collective media environment for everyone to jump in to create a homogenous place for everyone to be in. And probably will be interactable in VR and also for PCs, also to phones, because we're going to just easily use VR chat hosting capabilities. Yeah, VR chat, it's weird, but it's a fun place that people can hang out in. And for us, it's an easy place for a lot of people to be inside of one server together, creating something collectively. So, any other questions before we head off? Yeah, and please follow our community on Instagram. It's MetaVero Community. If you have any other questions, you can just literally jump onto our Discord, ask ahead. We'll be happy to help. We'll try to do more events on there to guide people on how to interact more with virtual reality, augmented reality in general, and AR as well, so like XR. Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Yep. So I guess expect more workshops hopefully next month, because this month we were more focused on this hackathon, and then hopefully we will host more workshops, as Ahmad already mentioned. Yeah. So I guess if we have no more questions, we hope to see you guys on our Discord server if you guys are not already there. And hope to see you on Instagram as well. And I guess that is it for today. You're most welcome. And yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Bye, guys, and see you in the hackathon.
See you in the hackathon. And let's see what you guys can do.
Yes. Okay, goodbye. Right. Best of luck. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.